welcome to Backstage Pass with Mural. I'm Haley Temple. I am your host for today's session. And today, as many of you who joined the call a little bit early, it's kind of just a real working session where those of us here at Mural and our special guests work together and use Mural to accomplish work and get it done. So we'll be working in Mural in a moment. And we'll be, as we're going through, I'll be answering questions and kind of sharing tips and tricks that you guys are seeing the team do while they're working. So if you have any questions for us, I'll be monitoring the chat, and I'll invite you guys, the audience members, to ask questions or share responses to things as we go throughout the session today. The goal of Backstage Pass every week is to share a new topic and for you guys to learn by observing, and a few of you will actually get to do some of the activities with us in the Mural today. So hang on tight, it'll be super fun to have you guys with us. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and share the Mural and share my screen so you guys can see what we're up to today. All right, so here are our panelists for today. And lovely Dana Publicover, who's the CEO of Neon, Joran Opelt, apologies if I mispronounced that.
It's Opelt.
Opelt, okay.
Yes.
And he is coming to us from RIDG, and Ward and Gino, they both work at Mural with me. And so they came in for this jam session today. And then also, I want to invite two of our audience members actually onto this Backstage Pass with us. So if you're interested in being promoted to a panelist, which means your video on, which means that you will be able to talk and collaborate with us, type the word yes in all caps, yes, into the chat, and I will pick two people completely randomly to be upgraded to a panelist at some point in the session. All right, so really quickly before we jump into our activity, when we were starting, I asked, what Olympic sport would you be and why? And I asked the audience to type it into the chat. I asked our panelists to share out loud. Ward said he would probably be doing bowling. Gino, what would your sport be and why?
I think fairly recently discovered that trampoline is actually an Olympic sport, and they can jump so high on the trampoline. And I remember when I was a kid, I had my own trampoline, and I always wished I could go higher on said trampoline. And so I would love to be able to not only participate, but actually be the sport, because it seems like a lot of fun.
Awesome. And actually, what I'm going to have you guys do, I'm going to ask you guys to come into this mural. So for panelists, you are going to get a link in a moment. Please join the mural there. Ward, you're going to be bowling, right? Dana, what would your Olympic sport be and why?
So I'm still unclear on what's an Olympic sport and what's not.
Oh, that's right.
But but I'm a former skydiving instructor, so I'm going to say something very extreme.
That's awesome. All right, so these people are just, I found this icon, they're just randomly falling out of the sky.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
All right, and Joran, what would you be and why?
I'm not sure if it's an Olympic sport or just some kind of like folk sport, but I get this image of like somebody lifting this huge steel ball and like moving it just
shot put
inch by it. No, like huge, like it's almost like deadlifting, but then you have to like move it.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, this inch by inch. The strategy is just to like move small steps, and that's the image I get.
I'm gonna put weightlifting into our icon search.
Sure.
See what happens. But you're gonna
never know what's gonna come back.
Yeah, basically you're gonna pick things up and put them down.
That's right. That's the story of my life.
All right, and then I'm gonna add mine is gonna be steeplechase. I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
I have no idea what that is.
So basically, it's you run around a track, and there's all these wood hurdles you have to jump over, and then every couple laps, there's also a water jump. So it's like they used to do this with horses, and then they're like, people should do this too.
It's an actual Olympic sport?
It is now, yeah. Oh yeah, it's a track event.
Amazing.
Pretty sick. All right, so thank you guys for sharing, and thanks to those in the audience who shared as well. Lisa said fencing. So I had a couple people who said that they would love to be promoted to panelist. So
Woo!
I'm gonna pick 2 of them right now, and you guys are gonna get notification that you're being upgraded.
And then we're going to play the music as you run on stage.
Yes, we should.
Dun, 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 and you come running up the stairs.
Here we go. All right, so they should be joining. So Mary, we aren't going to have direct access to this mural today, just to keep things a little bit more tame, but that might change throughout the session, honestly. All right, so while those 2 are joining, welcome everyone. What I want to ask our panelists to do is, I'm going to summon you so you're seeing what I'm seeing. I would love you to show us why you love visual thinking. So that means that I would love you to find images or icons, or you can sketch describing your response to why do you love visual thinking. And I see we have David who's joined us. Hi, David. How are you? Welcome.
Good, thanks. Thank you.
Good. Welcome. So glad to have you. And then our other guest.
Hi, sorry. Let me change my name. I'm Sophia. This is my work account. I didn't know I was signed in.
No worries. Welcome, Sophia. It's really nice to have you. So, and same thing, I'm going to invite you both into this mural right now. You'll see a link in the chat, and you guys are going to join and do the same thing, is share with pictures and icons why you love visual thinking, because today's session is all about working visually. And while they're doing that, for the audience, I'm going to ask you guys in the chat, why do you love working visually? Because today's session is really all about helping us think about ways that we can work visually, and helping also other people realize that they can work visually. I think a lot of people think, I'm not creative, I can't draw, so I'm not a visual worker or a visual thinker. And so today, success, we hope that you guys get some tips and some methods on how you can show people how to work visually, and that you start building your own confidence working visually. So even while we're going along in this session today, go ahead and practice sketching. You can respond and do the activities on your own in a mural as well. So it's really meant as a space and time for you to work together. All right, so what I'm going to do is give each of you guys another 30 seconds as I'm looking at how people are responding in the chat. So Jay said he likes working visually because it's a way to universally communicate and work quickly. Lisa said it provides clarity to everyone. Hillian said it helps sync the senses and encourage diverse creativity. Love that. Linda, people get to access different parts of their brains that are unavailable in words alone. Allison, it makes it easier to communicate feelings and moods, which may be hard to describe otherwise. All right, this is really wonderful responses from everyone. So I'm gonna ask each of you are gonna get 30 seconds to share out why you love visual thinking and working visually. So Dana, I'm gonna start with you since you're at the top. Why do you love, and I'm gonna ask you guys to mind the timer as well in the mural, so that way you can see how much time you have to share. So
awesome.
Ready?
So
go for it.
So for me, visual thinking, I work with a lot of multicultural and international teams, and we don't all speak the same language. So a lot of things can get lost in translation when we're trying to explain concepts, specifically in a design sprint during the storyboarding process. So if you're drawing it, there's less room for alternative interpretations, but you're also removing your own explanation and letting the picture speak for themselves, even if you can't draw.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Joran, why do you love visual thinking?
Yeah, I think for me, what the real big outcome for is it allows people to get on the same page. And I found this image of these two children kind of reading this from the same book. It allows you to kind of find yourself in the same story with one another and become engaged in the act of telling that story, kind of co-creating together. And then connected to that, I think that the tools are vitally important. There's so many people who, when we leave a session with them, they're doodling or they're ideating with post-it notes, and they're like, this is a game changer. So for me, those are the big two, an achievement.
Awesome. Love it. All right. Sophia,
Yes.
I think this is your cat, right? Love it.
Yeah. Why do I like working visually? Well, I have a very disorganized mind, or at least that's what I tell myself. So working visually helps me organize things. I like to see categories visually, and it helps me move things around and clarify my thoughts a little more. And I also I feel like communication happens better when you have a visual aid as well, more than using just your words. So those are some of the reasons why I like visual aids.
Wonderful. All right. Ward.
Yes.
Tell us why.
So if anybody were to see any of my visual interpretations of artistic efforts, you would see that it's clearly I still maintain a very childlike mind and probably childlike skill. In fact, probably many children are actually better at some of the visual traditions. So I love environments that from a humility, but ultimately a failure standpoint, allow me to celebrate my shortcomings and those of others and actually turn it into something that I think is a positive momentum. So
that's awesome. And yeah, I think that's the hardest part of visual thinking and working a lot of ways is you think it doesn't look artistic, but you're sending a message. So I appreciate the humility that you mentioned, like that comes from working visually.
You can see by my F there, even our attempts at I have a three hyphen F. I mean, come on.
I love it. It's an EF. It's a new character.
Exactly. New letter. Trademark.
All right. Thank you. Gino, explain your gifts or your GIFs to us.
Yes, I still say gifts, but
Me too.
what I like is similar to what other people have said, that when you're seeing something come together rather than reading about it, it's a lot clearer. And honestly, I just think it's a lot of fun. So I have a nice GIF of Michelle Tanner here doing a little happy dance. And I know that it would be sarcastic, but from The Office, this is supposed to be a GIF about it being a fun conversation. And then also at the very bolt of it, helps me remember a lot better when I'm seeing images and processes and things like that, rather than just reading this long, 3-page paper of what we're going to be doing.
Nice. All right, thanks. And last but not least, David.
I'm loving using the tools and visual thinking and design thinking because I'm constantly in a dynamic situation. I work in education and I'm trying to get people to engage in new tasks that they haven't done before. And particularly with the pandemic happening, there's lots of pressure to realize new stuff that we haven't thought of before and to take existing experiences that have value and ritual and that sort of thing and reinvent them. So the great thing about the tools, it allows you to quickly get out a lot of stuff that is maybe vocabulary that helps you tell a story going forward. And then it also is a way of saying, change the level of abstraction. And when you do that, then you can reformulate ideas in another way. So it's really cool when people put stuff out, they group it, they regroup it, they change the level of abstraction, and then they agree on some plan of action and everybody understands what we're talking about. And we used to spend hours in meetings waiting for people to say what they meant. And now we can see what they mean and we can move it around so quickly. It's just so beautiful and so much more efficient.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. So I think a lot of patterns emerging from what you guys love about visual thinking. So I feel like I'm with my people, honestly, when I'm working and talking about visuals and working in this way. But to your point, it's a lot of flexibility, agility, alignment, creating meaning when words don't necessarily work or you're speaking different languages. So, and Sophia, I loved your point about feeling like a disorganized mind. To me, it's thinking visually and working in pictures is a really awesome way. I think it's an advantage. So I think of it as your superpower. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I'm gonna show you guys. There's a new feature, by the way, in Mural called Celebrate, where you can just throw confetti when you finish an activity. It's
my favorite.
Awesome. It's so fun and delightful. Yay. So, all right. So let's shift over. We're gonna go over here, and I'm gonna ask you guys to follow me because we're gonna do our first visual activity with Dana. And Dana's gonna take us through. I don't know what are we calling this activity? Or if we're not giving it a name right now, don't have to.
I think we're open to suggestions on that. Okay. I've been calling it Design Your Autobiographical Film because the word biopic was not translating to other languages like I wanted it to. So biopic if you're an English native speaker, autobiographical film if you're not. If you have a better idea, I am totally open for it. So Haley is going to demonstrate really quickly how this works, but this is how to represent visual ideas or create storyboards without sketching, because a lot of us get hung up on the fact that we can't draw, because not all of us are artists. In fact, most of us aren't. So being able to pull in almost like a virtual collage is way easier to do. Mural makes it an amazing tool, and now you can crop images within Mural, and I'm not sure if that's new or if I just never found it before, but it's awesome. So if Haley were participating in this, she would find a picture of the actress that would play her. Okay, I see that.
Someone said I look like her, and I was like, really?
I can see it. And then she would pick a scene. So where would her character be? Where would most of her movie take place? Lovely.
Yes, I wish I was here.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, so pop your actor in that scene there. And we're going to start building the scene from here. And then you'll pick a couple accessories, things that your actor, the character playing you, would definitely have on hand, things that are really representative of your personality, whatever kind of props would be there.
What would be? Let me see.
Well, while she's thinking of that, the other things you would find,
Put me on a spot here.
Accessories. You'll also, if you have time left over and you're still working and we're, the clock hasn't run out yet, grab the logo of the network that would air your movie. And again, this may not translate internationally as well, because I'm not sure the difference between BBC4, BBC5, all of them. But think about where this might show or what kind of company would produce it. So we're going to take 5 minutes, and our volunteer panelists are going to have the opportunity to build their own. And then we'll do a quick share out.
All right, there we go. That's my quick little collage.
Netflix. Nice. Yeah, so Haley Haley created that collage really, really quickly, really, really easily. She didn't have to leave Mural to do it. Although you can always go to Google and copy and paste images if you can't find what you're looking for. So cool. I'm going to set am I a facilitator here?
No, let me upgrade you. So let me upgrade you. Oh, wait. Okay, here we go. I can't give you facilitation access, but I will set the timer for you. So
Perfect.
Since Dana's a guest in this workspace, that's why I can't add her as a facilitator. But that's another thing is I can change facilitator rights from the Mural now, which is so nice. But
that was a game changer.
Here we go. Start timer. And we are off to the races. Someone's on a roller coaster already. Also, I'm looking through the chat, and a lot of you guys are not, when we're talking about GIFs, I asked how people pronounce the moving pictures here, and a lot of us are team GIF, which I am as well, but wanted to be mindful of different people.
All right, so the wrong people. Right?
Yeah, the people who are wrong. I'm like, I'm going to be politically correct, and you're like, no. Oh my God, I love it. All right, so, and those of us who are in the chat, if you feel comfortable working visually, I recommend that you fire up a mural wherever you are in the world and actually make your own collage. And it'd be really cool to learn what you guys are creating. And if you don't feel like working visually yet, that's totally okay. Feel free to ask us questions about how to add pictures and icons and images as well. And Jay gave us a great suggestion. So Mural actually has frameworks in the mural itself that you can pull into the mural and start working. And a great one is this storyboarding framework. So if you wanted to, you could give people a frame, a space to work right here. And while they're working, I'm going to ask Dana, so can you tell me a little bit about, this group is pretty comfortable using Mural, but you said usually I made it really quickly because I'm comfortable with the tool. So how do you introduce this activity, or how do you get people who aren't comfortable using Mural used to working in this way?
If I'm working with a group of people that hasn't ever used Mural before, I use a Mural training as kind of the intro and the warm up. So having them perform a super simple task that is part of the introduction. And that way they're not so hung up on learning the new tool because they're thinking about their answer, their response, or how they're kind of reacting to the icebreaker element of it. And so trying to distract people with a deceptively simple task in order to teach them a new tool is kind of my thing. And so with bringing in the pictures, I feel like people are super comfortable with copy and paste. People are super comfortable with drag and drop from other software tools that they use. And I try to reference those as much as possible. So I'll say, hey, you know, in Dropbox, when you drag a file and you can drag it onto the screen from another thing, like you can totally do that here. Sometimes I'll have people pre-save images to their desktop so we don't have to spend so much time searching. That's great. To get people used to just pulling images from all over and even using that image search tool in Mural.
Nice. And that's what I liked I think something that if you're facilitating a session, I always like having a co-facilitator with me. So when you and I kind of briefed before this call, we said, you know, I'm going to demo and you can explain, and that way everyone gets the full effect of the show and tell.
Totally.
All right, another minute or so for our...
Seems like people are mostly done here.
Yeah, speedy.
Yeah, got a lot of pros.
Yeah. So yeah, the 5 minutes, it might be helpful for somebody who is not necessarily comfortable using Mural. They're still trying to figure it out. And Dana, I also want to clarify, so you say you do a training session for the group. Is that before the actual, let's say you're doing like a multi-day workshop or a longer meeting? So is that included as part of it? Like you reserve half an hour or something before you get into the work, or is
in an ideal perfect situation, yeah, or it's done before where we're doing some clarity and some alignment. It would be great to do that intro to all the tools before the day. So if we were going to do a sprint, for instance, and start on a Monday, maybe the Friday before would be really great for a 30-minute, hey, let's all jump on Mural, let's use the tool, let's make sure that we all know what we're doing. Obviously that doesn't work all the time, but just trying to do, you're always going to factor in time for a warm-up, you're always going to factor in time for some sort of icebreaker. You can use that as your Mural training.
Awesome. Love it. All right. So time is up. We're going to do the same thing we did for the first activity, which is go around to each storyboard or collage and ask you to share your story in 30 seconds. So what we're going to do is rather than me summoning you guys or asking you to follow me, you are going to invite us to follow you and show us where you are. So let me see. I'm going to ask, Gino, I'm going to ask you to start.
Alrighty.
I'm going to ask us to follow you.
Be followed.
All right.
And I'm up here. I have quite the whirlwind for my biopic. The
timer.
The actor to play me, I get it a lot that I look like Jason Momoa. I guess not so much now that my hair has been chopped off. I also get Jack Black, and I also get Jon Snow. So I made this little 3-headed monster guy that would be at a disco surrounded by puppies and burritos. And also, this is a little rugby ball, which would all air in most likely a limited series on HBO.
Amazing.
Love it. All right. Gino, who should go next?
Let's go with David.
Okay.
Right. David, ask us to follow you, so we are over at your collage.
Going there, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
The 30-second tour. I started in Germany, and I've ridden a lot of bicycles, and life has been quite a roller coaster. I've gone from one profession to another profession, and the actor who would play me might be a cartoon character. I was known for doing a dog simulator, a cartoon VR dog simulator, but the pictures on the available data set are all coming from prohibited sources, so I can't get that. And beekeeping is a study of industrious social insects. So the actor who's playing me is an unknown teacher, and that's a small bit part, and my story is going to be on Vimeo because it's kind of private, really. So I think the financial part of it is the part that makes me not want to be too widely known, because I was not doing it. I was looking into it. So a few people that I found might like to find me.
Nice.
Did I cover the assignment? I'm not sure.
You did. Yeah. You did. That's like a perfect educator question. Like, what was my grade? I love it. All right, David, who's next? So it's Gino and Dana both gone. So Ward, Ward, you're near there. So I might have you go.
All right.
Thank you. All right, 30 seconds. Go.
So the actor, little known Bart Johnson, my 4-year-old daughter calls me Troy Bolton's dad from High School Musical. So her like, Troy Bolton dad, like that's who you are. So I actually didn't know the actor's name anyway. We at our family right now have certainly consumed more than our fair share of Disney Plus recently. And what I realized is that there's somebody that's heavily involved in youth sports as a coach and administrator. We are really, really short on bingeable content that is celebrating, girls playing sports. We have a lot of content that highlights boys playing sports, mm-hmm. And we don't have the same for girls. So that would be the bingeable content playing, some version of Troy Bolton's dad.
I love it, and that's a great. Double Teamed is an awesome movie.
Oh, yeah. It is like the only movie we had. I had to go deep in the library. It is epic.
Yes.
She does the pump fake with her feet.
Yeah. Oh my god! And it's like a 20-minute pumping her feet, and then it's like 10 seconds to go, and you're like, she's still what? That's so epic.
All right, I'll pass it over to Sophia.
All right, Sophia, ask us.
I'm gonna need your help, guys. How do I ask you to follow me?
Yeah, so click on your at the bottom of your browser. Click on your avatar.
Oh, I see it. Ask to be followed?
Yes.
Has it shown up?
Yes, indeed.
Amazing. There it is.
Okay. Now let me orient myself. Where am I? Here. So my biopic or my life story will be documentary style, nature documentary, and David Attenborough is gonna narrate it. It's the rough and tumble journey of a lost baby opossum who finally comes out victorious. She discovers herself. This does follow my path. I've moved around the world a lot, and I moved away from my family from India and came to Toronto. But one thing that stayed constant throughout is my love for nature, and I do sometimes. I empathize with scurrying little critters.
That's awesome. I love that you did, like, all of us were like, oh, it would be this person who looks like me, and you did a little character. Which is
Yeah, it's the personality that's like mine.
I love
Anybody
that.
can play me.
That's awesome. All right. And
I like this clumsy icon too. Is that for you?
Yeah, that's the
Is that
rough
what
and
you-
tumble part. I wanted to do something like David. I think we did something similar with the roller coaster and the cartoon.
That's awesome. All right. And I think we have Joran and Dana who's going to go, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to invite Joran. You go next.
Okay, let me invite everyone to follow. And then I'm going to zoom in on mine. Okay, here we go. So, for any Wheel of Fortune fans out there, my great grandmother, we call her Gram Nana, who's no longer with us, she used to say when I was a kid that I looked like a young Pat Sajak. And I lived with that for a long time until I worked on a construction site when I got out of high school. And all the dudes on the construction site said, "Hey, you look like that guy from that movie Stargate. You look like James Spader." So I had Spader on my construction helmet for the whole time I was there. So James Spader is the guy who's playing me. We're in a castle just because it's fun. We have got some ham and pineapple pizza just because it's controversial and every story needs conflict. And we're on HBO because all the good stuff's there.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome.
Love it. And Dana, did you build one as well?
I did.
All right. Last but not least. Oh, there you are. Okay.
There I am.
And 30
Okay.
seconds. Go.
So Kristen Shaw would definitely play me, and it would take place in my messy living room with me trying to work with a lot of kids around. So there's my laptop and my time timer, my constant companions. A lot of LaCroix. And once the sun goes down, there's a lot of wine in that LaCroix. And then this would definitely be on FX just because they have a lot of moms who aren't afraid to drop F-bombs in the carpool line. And I feel like that really lines up with me.
This is awesome.
Right
All
on
right.
time.
Perfect. Thank you guys. This is our collage of our group. I love it. And I guess I'll ask one question before we shift to the next activity was how was that? How was building this out for those of you guys who participated?
How is it different from drawing?
Yeah.
For me, it's a lot easier than drawing because I definitely self-identify as one of those people that isn't very competent in their drawing skills, but I know what I'm thinking and what types of elements I want to have in my visual, presentation, so to speak. And so I'm able to easily find pictures of burritos, and I can look through a whole library of a bunch of different burritos until I find the one that I think represents the burrito that I would like. So.
Can you see this? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, on an ease of use scale, I would rate this a 9. This was just really easy for everybody to get in and do it immediately. And as far as like an empathy building and understanding tool, like an icebreaker, it's pretty high. Like I know a lot about people's personalities at this point and have questions, right, that would lead to larger conversations. So it's pretty great.
Yeah.
Can you see how this would translate to replace storyboarding or kind of explaining conceptual ideas?
Oh, yeah. And also, you don't miss anything as well, when you're trying to think of what your, for this specific exercise, what your, biopic would be. I might think, oh man, who was going to play me? Jack Black, and I'd be at a disco, and then that's all you might get. Whereas here, I'm like, oh yeah, I love burritos, and I love puppies, and I love rugby, and I love dancing. Let me find all this stuff that I can just pop a picture on, and then it's easy for me to remember, these are the 4 or 5 things that I want to hit on, and then can use my words or, explain it from the pictures.
And going back to what we were saying about being a really good introduction to the tools, you're not thinking how to use it, you're thinking what you're looking for. So it's a nice distraction.
Mm-hmm.
I was finding that when I also identify as not visual, I'm wordy. I like study literature and history. So for me, telling the story is like I think of it in words, and I'm looking for images. And as soon as I find an image, it changes to a visual thing. So it's like it gets you out of one mode and into another mode. And I've also found that here we're trying to do something reasonably narrative, but I found it's really good. I've been making murals and sharing them with an artist, and then each of us taking part of the screen and working with that like over several days asynchronously. And that's really cool too, because you see how it changes over time. And I want to be able to animate it in a historic way, just like play it through, but I haven't figured out how to do that yet. But the other thing is I've also used it for taking a more concrete images. So like I'm doing Tableau visualizations and I'm trying to explain what they mean, and I'll build a story, like a sequence of things, and put thought bubbles on it or do something like that. So it's great for storytelling that starts from the visual or needs the visual, you know.
That's awesome. Thank you guys. And thank you, Dana, so much for facilitating and doing this debrief too. It's helpful to hear, and it's such an important part of activities as well as a debrief. And I think this is a great intro activity, and you can even make it shorter or adjust it for other audiences. So thank you. I want to.
For sure. You could just tell people to grab the actor they think would play them.
Yes.
If you have a lot of people. I noticed Gisela answered a question, asked a question like that. Yeah,
you guys,
super easy.
You guys put this into the workflow? It's kind of like sometimes I've noticed that you're using sofas, or I did one last week where I was like, pick your treehouse. You know, I gave them a few treehouse. So like if you do, is this the place in the sequence that you're thinking of this, or is this somewhere else? Is this a warm-up type of activity?
I think you said, Dana, it is, right? It is a warm-up.
I would use it for a warm-up if that particular activity was going to have some kind of visual element. I think sometimes I tend to disperse micro warm-ups throughout the day. So if it's like a week-long sprint, right before we get to maybe storyboarding or sketching, I would pull this out at that point.
Got it. All right. So being mindful of time, I want to make sure we shift gears over to Joran's also going to do a nice activity focused on visuals and working visually and thinking visually. So I'm going to, well, first of all, celebrate always, but ask you guys to follow me over to the next part of the mural. And Joran, tell us a little about what our next activity is going to be.
Sure. Here, I'm just going to zoom in and I'm going to ask.
I'll follow you, yeah.
Yeah, let me see if people can follow me. Here's a pro tip. What I did was I got in here and I took a screenshot of the background of the mural, and then I went into Photoshop and I dropped it, and I found out it was E3, E3, E3 gray, and I covered up all my elements with squares. So I'm going to reveal them now.
Nice.
I think Mural just has that feature built in, right? Because we can just hide and unhide things in the outline.
You can. So let me show you an example while you're unhiding, Joran. If I can add it to the outline. So if I add, here we go. Let's say I wanted to add this possum picture to the outline. Then what I can do is hide it so that the rest of the audience can't see it, and then reveal.
Oh, nice.
So
there's still a visual element in play. You just don't know what it is.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's great. That's great.
So yeah, many ways to accomplish this as well. But,
fantastic.
All right.
Let me cover this up again. The thing about visual thinking, for me, is that you're moving between maps, and the importance of visual thinking in the work I do with visual facilitation and now virtual facilitation is that we do at Ridge, we do a lot of innovation training and getting people to think about the maps around their business. We do a lot of context mapping or stakeholder mapping or empathy mapping, and the trick here is to understand that not only is like Martha Stewart and Oprah Winfrey and Gary Vaynerchuk and all these people are holding different maps of the world, and understanding that the innovation opportunity is your ability to design this path moving you from the map in your hand to where you want to be, that future map that you're building to scale. And the importance of working visually over here, I'll zoom in over here, is that there's kind of three big ones that I want to point out. The first advantage to working visually in groups is that your engagement goes through the roof. There's a level of participation when you're working visually. It's just, it's magical, it's alchemical. There's something that's almost unmeasurable when you get people working on the same page together. What happens is that they feel listened to and acknowledged, and sometimes the way I describe it sometimes is if I am telling you a story and I talk about a tree, you might have in your mind a different image of a tree. So I might be describing a tree and I ask you to draw a picture of that tree. What happens is that you draw a picture of a pine tree, and then I say, no, 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 what I was actually talking about was an apple tree. And now when we start drawing a picture together, we start drawing a picture of an apple tree, and we start questioning what color red are we using, or are they green apples? How many apples are on the tree? How tall is the tree? Am I able to stand under it and get shade, or is it an orchard filled with other trees? Are they connected at the roots? What's happening with this tree? And that's a completely different conversation than just talking about a tree verbally. So when you start drawing pictures for one another, this participation level goes through the roof. The other thing with visual and virtual facilitation is that if you know you're going to be called upon, you have people engaged. There is a toggle switch where they are leaning forward because they think they're going to be called on next. So there is an onness to the group when you are working visually that is not there when you're doing some kind of presentation or working passively. The second big advantage is going to be this big picture thinking, right? This is back to these kids reading the same story. They're getting smarter when they're reading the same story, finding each other inside that story, and they're mapping the same ideas, and they're finding patterns, and they're able then to have a conversation about the big picture they're in together. It becomes empathy work at that point. And the third one is memory. This is the reason people are able to work visually and work faster and more effectively using visuals. It leads to better and more efficient outcomes in the workplace. The group memory and the level of follow-through that you're able to do using, whether it's the one thing or OKRs or agile frameworks or whatever it is you're using, if it's visual, again, you're all telling the same story, you're on the same page together, you remember what you did yesterday, you're looking forward to where you're going tomorrow. So those are the three big advantages to visual thinking, and those are right from David Sibbitt's book, Visual Meetings. And the second thing down here that I want to talk about is that people think they can't draw. So we hear this a lot. We have people say, well, working visually sounds fun, but I can't even draw a stick figure. I don't even know where to begin. And we have to remind everyone that everything is made of the most basic, fundamental, simple shapes. That's all we're ever doing is building things out of the same set of shapes. If there's a poster on the wall, I say, look over here at this gear, on the wall. It's just 2 concentric circles and it's 8 rectangles around the edge. Everything can be broken down into basic shapes. The house is basically a rectangle with a triangle on top and maybe some ovals for smoke coming out of the chimney, but everything can be broken down and distilled into those shapes. So we start with this basic vocabulary. And if you're working on a wall or even in a mural, color can be used here, this first one. Just group things together with color. You might just take the pen and you might just start circling things. Everything that gets circled around, that's one cluster. Or draw a triangle around another, that's another cluster. Something really easy and that everyone can do is just swipe a marker on a piece of paper and start connecting things with arrows or lines. So the idea of that it's challenging to work visually is a fallacy. I tell the story all the time of the college art professor who comes home and kicks her feet up at night, and her daughter comes in the room and says, Mommy, what do you do for work? What do you do for a living? And she turns to her daughter and she says, well, honey, I teach grown-ups how to draw. And the little girl gasps and her jaw drops open and she says, you mean we forget? This is something that we're born doing, and somewhere along the way we're told we can't do it, or that it's not the right way to do it. It doesn't lead to the correct outcome. So we encourage everyone to start with the basic shapes and keep at it. Keep reworking the shapes.
Oh, yeah. And so how do we, I think a lot of you guys, when you started this session, talked about why you love working visually. And I see Gino up here working on creating something visual. So how do you, Jordan, like to invite people to start working visually, especially as you mentioned, when you're working and facilitating virtual sessions?
We always open up with some kind of team portrait or icebreaker where, it's like pair up with your neighbor and draw them on a Post-it note, and that just immediately gets them working with ovals and lines and squigglies and, and laughing at themselves and understanding that it's okay to mess up. It just becomes about story. It becomes about, and then you could take it another level and say, okay, now what is your neighbor's superpower? Draw a picture of that, and then all of a sudden it's like, I don't have to be talented. All I have to do is draw like a fist with like lines coming out of it, or a cape on a stick figure, or just an empty space because they're invisible, or whatever it is, right? It's just all of a sudden it becomes this creative, generative act that's just magical, and then they're in the zone. Then they can do anything.
Let's do it. Can we do that with this crew?
We can. What I want,
or unless you had an activity. I know we kind of talked about an activity, so I want to make sure.
What I want to do is below here, and I'm just going to move this to the side because what I want to do. Oh, that's a pattern.
Yeah,
okay. I love that.
It is over here, like creating something awesome. I'm excited to see.
That's like The Shining. That's like the carpet in The Shining hotel. I love it.
Yep, it totally is.
Dana knows exactly what she's doing.
Uh-huh.
All right, cool. So yeah, what I want to do is an exercise that is maybe a little more advanced, but at the very least, it's not using the images and the icons and the photos. It's strictly using the shapes and the draw tool. Okay. So what I want us to do is, we talked a little bit about the tree and the meaning of the tree. What I want us all to do is down in this space below, we're all going to draw a tree. And here's the reason. Like, everybody's got a different context for the tree. If I grew up having been read to, maybe somebody read me Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree, I might have an understanding now as an adult that trees are this kind of sacrificial element on the altar of modern capitalism, right? Or whatever. I've got this kind of slant about trees. Maybe I was a fan of Avatar, or maybe I come from a culture that views trees as connected at the roots and being the containers of legacy and the ability for energy to be exchanged throughout the forest. The trees are something spiritual. Ward, hold on just 1 second. Don't start yet.
You gave them instructions. They're going to run with it.
I know. Hold on just 1 second. The thing about trees is that there are also maybe some other ways we can view them. I think for anybody who's Black and in America, and specifically the South, you may look at a tree as being a part of a violent legacy. Dr. Melanie Harris asked the question, is the tree complicit in the lynching, right? Have they been forced into a violent role? So there are so many ways to look at trees. And so what I want you to do when you're drawing your tree is two things. One, hold in your mind the shape of the tree. Right? What are the smaller, more basic, fundamental shapes that the tree is made of? And two, what does the tree mean to you? What is the meaning in the icon? What is the meaning in the symbol? So those two things are going to work together as you kind of translate this mental image of a tree onto the thing. Your first step, and here's where we can start giving instructions. Your first step is I want you to create a little space. Just create a shape on the canvas there at the bottom, like a placemat, like any kind of shape, a circle or a triangle, a square or whatever. And just kind of create some space where you're going to work.
And Jordan, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to invite people from the audience who would like to do this activity to join us. So I just added the link to the mural in here. Oh, I'm gonna add the visitor link actually. 1 moment. And the same thing, Jordan, they're gonna make a placemat as well.
Yeah,
right?
Create a little placemat just like we did in school, just for that, you put your clay on or whatever, just put it down. That's your area that you can get as messy as you want. And that way kind of your boundaries and your borders and where you're going to be creating inside.
That's a great facilitator tip too, is to give yourself that space, or as a facilitator, you can assign that space too. So it's whatever you feel comfortable doing. Yeah.
And then the next step is, again, without using icons or images, only using shapes and the draw tool, create your tree. inside that shape.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say, I don't know, what about 4 minutes for this?
Okay. I will add to the timer. And if you guys are joining as visitors, you'll notice you're no longer anonymous animals. You're a visiting animal, and you can also add your name as a visitor before you join.
And I encourage you not to look at what your neighbor is drawing.
All right. So I see we have the visiting ram. I can just clicking to see where everyone is. So again, if you're joining the mural right now, find a rectangle or make a circle, like a placemat for yourself to work. And then you're going to start drawing your tree, what your tree looks like in that space, and what does this tree mean to you? What's its significance? And I'm still expanding this mural out so that if you need space, you can find it.
That's great. Yeah, no words other than your name, that's fine, but just the tree using color, shape, and line.
Love it. And I see we have
about 3 minutes left. You guys are doing great.
Yeah. Our visiting
It's
fish.
funny that David brought up conjured up the image earlier of the tree house. You know, there's so many ways you can go with this exercise. You can have them do a self-portrait. That's that kind of self-reflective inquiry of how am I perceived? What do I look like? What are my traits and features? And go kind of the Jungian route and do a house, the house as a mental construct with all its chambers and rooms. What is your fortress, your castle, your whatever? But the tree is different. The tree, like I said earlier, could be perceived in so many different ways. Are you thinking of it as a spiritual symbol, as a symbol of, as an ecological symbol? Are you thinking of all the insects and birds that make their home in the tree? Is it basically a natural condominium? Like there's so many ways that you can interact with this organic expression. And all of everyone doing this right now is using the draw tool, which is really encouraging, because what we talked about in preparation for this was that we so rarely see people using the draw tool. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. I love the mix that we have here. All right, Annette, you're saying you're having problems getting into the mural. Let me give you the visitor link again, just in case you guys are trying to get in, not able to. See if that works. And yeah, make sure if you are a visitor, you put your name on your tree or near your tree as well. Teresa's asking, how do we erase things when we're sketching? So I'm just showing the draw capabilities in this last minute we have with sketching. So you'll hit this toolbar up at the top, and there's an erase button. So you have all these different pen tools, you have the colors you can change, and this eraser. And when you click on an item, it will erase it for you. And we have about 6 minutes before our session together is up. And if you guys are watching or participating, I'm going to ask in the chat. Feedback is really important to our team as we make more of these sessions and we have our weekly webinars. So if you can put in the chat a score, how satisfied you are with the session today. 1 being you are completely dissatisfied, it was a waste of time. 10 being it was a hugely valuable session for you. Please let us know, and why. Why did you give that rating? And that will be really helpful for us, as we mentioned, as we make more of these sessions to make it more engaging for you. And if there are any topics you are curious to learn more about as part of the session, let us know, and we will add that to the docket.
Our time's up, and yes. I want to just give a few people like 30 seconds, like you've been doing, to just quickly report out about what their tree is.
All right.
What does it mean to them in 30 seconds or less?
Who would like to start?
I can start, I guess.
All right. If you don't, thank you, Gino. Do you mind having us follow you?
Of course.
Okay. 30 seconds. Tell us about your tree.
Of course. So I remember the first time I saw the movie Avatar, not the TV show Avatar. I think you already brought it up, so it kind of stole my thunder. But I really resonated with the Tree of Souls and how cool it is. They, connect with this, form of life that's innate to the planet that they live on. And so I just wanted to try to represent that using icons. So I tried to have like the little white circles representing like the more mystical parts of the tree, with then like sorry, I'm colorblind. I don't know if this is actually green or brown, but then this being the more like actual physical parts of that same tree.
Love that. Thank you, Gino.
All right. Who's going next, Gino? Popcorn.
Let's go with Dana.
So I didn't think as much about the meaning so much as focused on trying to draw a tree.
Where's your tree, Dana, if you don't mind having us follow you?
There you go.
Perfect. All right.
I'm right here, and the tree that's on my mind most is my fiddle leaf fig, because she's really fickle and she requires a lot of thought and attention for a houseplant. And she's actually right there, she's behind me, and she's listening. Yeah, she was over there. I feel like the sunlight was a little intense, so I'm thinking about her a lot. She was on my mind, and that's why I chose to draw her.
Lovely.
Her name's Sylvia.
I love.
Dana broke the rules by using a pot icon, but she, I think, made up for it by drawing her placemat with her fingers. So
yeah,
that's great.
With that, I thought we could grab shapes.
Shapes, yes, but then you're fine. You did great,
Okay.
Dana. You did fantastic.
All right. Who's next, Dana? Popcorn.
All right. I picked David.
Okay, I'm down here with a kind of system-oriented tree.
Ooh.
I'm in an environment which could be conceived of as an atmosphere. Part of the fruit is coming out. There's as much below as there is above, and there are curves. I don't know how to use the tool well enough to flip things and make it as complex as I wanted it to be, but it was going in the direction that I wanted, and I learned something from doing it. I tried to make it so that you could rotate it and get the same thing out of it. I don't know, for me, it was about the balance in the system. And I think of a tree as kind of a respiratory organism. It's like bringing fluid up, and it's making air, and there's a lot going on there that is invisible. And I have an orchard, so I often am thinking about fruit. I have pear trees and stuff like that, and I keep bees. So for me, there's a lot going on of points of interest for little insects and pollination and stuff like that.
David,
So
that's fantastic.
That brought me lots of feelings while I was doing something I'm not comfortable doing.
That's awesome. All right, thanks. And who's next? Raise your hand, our panelists. If you haven't gone, raise your hand. We know who's left.
Probably got time for one more, maybe.
Yeah, let's do Sophia, if you don't mind sharing yours.
Sure, I can go next. Follow me over to my willow tree. It's the new feature I've learned today, so I'm going to be doing
Yes. Great.
Are you at my willow, everybody? So I was thinking of a tree. There. Okay, asked to be followed. I was thinking of a tree as a place. I was thinking more in terms of older trees that are there in a place for like years, maybe even 100 years. So I drew a willow. It's like a landmark, something that's been through time, like older symbolisms. And I picked the willow because I love the flowy, drapey branchiness of it. And it's sort of something that it's there, it's in a single spot, it doesn't move, yet it spreads and it embraces everything around it.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you. What a beautiful way to start a Friday for me, or if you're around the world, end of Friday. So first of all, I'm being mindful of time. I want to thank you guys for participating today. I want to thank Dana and Joran. A huge thank you for facilitating this session.
Thank you,
These
Haley.
activities, the audience really loved the inspiration you provided for their own sessions. So with that, I'll let you know we'll post the recording and this mural in a couple days so you guys can look back and reflect and learn more. But we'll see you guys again here not next week. We're not going to be here next week, actually, on Friday, but the Friday after, 2 weeks from now. We'll see you same time, same place for more online collaboration and visual working. So
Awesome.
Thanks, Haley.
take care, guys.
Everyone, thank you, Haley.
Thank
Thanks
you.
Bye.